production, spends the entire day with us, and we walk through the whole deal. We go through all the woods. We see the wood selection. We see see Paul's over there parking spot, which is so much fun to do if you ever go to PRS Field Mark and Paul's parking spot and see what happens. It's really fun. We try to do that, and we did that at Taylor Cars too. And we did that at back there. And we would come on a great parking spot. But so anyway, the factory. It was just shocking to see, there were so many people on the floor doing so much handwork that the standing and the buffing part of it was just what sort of blew us away. The cleanliness of the factory, and the overall, it wasn't people are having parties and stuff. It was not like a dour, sad factory. It was a happy factory. People are excited to be making really pretty pieces of functional art, is what some people call it. This is in the US, you can see it's all right. But we got to meet a bunch of people working on it. They were all insanely proud of what they do. From the inlay guys to the fret guy, because there's one fret guy that does pretty much all the frets for every core in C and DC, to the guy in charge of winding the pickups. And we go to the girls that are sort of doing the wax dippings, and they've been there for years, and this is a job when you get it, you don't leave. Not at the same level as Mark. Watch that video later, it's pretty cool. But that's great. But anyway, same area of the country. Let's get back to PRS. But anyway, the factory. It was an unbelievable experience. We've been to lots of factories. They're not all the same. Most of the major manufacturers have unbelievable factories, and they have it for a reason, because they are the top lines in the world, and they've been doing this for quite a while. They figure out that this was a fairly new one in the scheme of things, in the 80s. So they don't have the history of the 1800s or Fender's histories like the mid-1900s. These guys, he found this company in the 80s, and he started off as a luthier, and Paul's walking around the factory, getting in people's business, tinkering on guitars. This is not what you see normal CEOs doing. They're usually up, figuring out the big picture stuff. Paul's doing that, but I think he's also. Let's talk about Paul for a minute. Paul's a little different. He's a little eccentric. If you've been to any of his road shows or any of his clinics, as they call them, and met him, he's a different bird. I've interviewed him multiple times. James has interviewed him. It's really fun to interview Paul. You never know what's going to happen. He's kind of like your crazy uncle. That's just but he's brilliant, and it's frustrating because he's smarter than you are, and he knows more about, or he'll forget more about guitars than you'll ever know. That's what I would say about the technicalities of them. Kind of like George Green, he'll forget more than I'll ever know. And he's a combination of I say he's a crazy Larry Sanders. Larry David meets Bernie Sanders meets Tom Selleck, all wrapped into one. It's an interesting combo. But that's sort of the idea of this crazy, but then a brilliant scientist, the doctor from Back to the Future. He's wandering around the factory, getting in the business, making guitars still, and he's running multi-million-dollar company. He's a brilliant guy who's working on the mathematics with all sorts of strange other businesses. But that sort of shocked me, just to sort of the level of involvement compared to what I've seen before. Because I just don't expect that from someone that's running a company that has that many employees that are all working their tails off to build the finest instruments that they can. And their output, they've had increased in 3 shifts, I believe, to get the demand, because for the guitars fulfilled at all. And when we order a guitar from PRS, we're on the outset of, for a core piece, we're looking at about 12 months, maybe 14 months. And this is not an artist package. This is not, which we just got a note yesterday that they're putting on hold for a little bit because they ran out of wood. Because they're very particular about the wood they use. They don't want to have anything that's less than perfect. There's an obsessive compulsive design about that, and more so. And good policy. I forgot what I was saying. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, timeline. Anyway, so we've had some pieces that are a year and a half. We've actually had one piece that we ordered. I remember we ordered it. God, it just showed up. I think we ordered it a year and a half ago. We had someone else just 2 years. I don't know. At least they're pretty. They're beautiful when they come in. They're gorgeous. It just takes a long time sometimes. So we know the quality control is outstanding. some of the other major and minor manufacturers have had some issues with that in the past few years. You know who we're talking about there. It's everything shows up. There's no finish work. There's no like weird like buffing, like swirling on the top. There's no fret issue. There are no fret issues. Actually, you cover very much. And it frustrates me again because I do not want to like these guitars. They're not. Again, I want to play a beat up Fender Stratocaster. I want to play a dirty Les Paul with a gorgeous top, or a plain top, or a 355 or a 335. I just like that's just I'm into that. But then what I find at the end of the day a lot of times, I have my Cardi 594 plugged into a 2-rod, and that is like my happy place. I have a few moments just playing this perfect sounding instrument doing another perfect sounding amplifier. It's expensive toys, but they're amazing. And in the support we've had from the company, Clay in particular, it's been pretty impressive. These aren't these major like behemoths that like we didn't like you talk about Fender and Gibson and Martin and some of the guys that even like sort of bigger, they're not that big. But PRS, like I can literally pick up the phone and talk to head of operations if you need to. You can call your people that work within it. Anybody can just pick up the phone and call PRS. You'll talk to the person at the front desk, and they will connect you to whoever you need to talk to, except for maybe Paul. But you can talk to him at one of the clinics, and he's hopefully willing to sit there and talk to you for a long time about the innate details of what goes in his guitars, or about deep sea fishing, or about the military, or about some other random off strange topic that you wouldn't expect, because he's very knowledgeable and he's a strange